Fellas, just real quick wanted to point some things out. Probably should have covered some of this on the build. Some people are having problems with these CVDs right here. They'll get too far out to the edge here. Not sure if you can see that very good, so I can get some more light in there. But this roll pin, this drive pin that goes through the end of your CVA, the dog bone part, cannot protrude more than maybe a centimeter. I'm talking like you want it as flush with this out drive as you can get it. Same over here. You want to try to keep it as flush as you can get it. This one is probably just a tiny hair off, but it's not out far enough I got to worry about it. If you get the center of that roll pin right there, if you get the center of that, let me zoom in on it here. If you get the center of this too far out on the edge, once it gets to the center of it here, it'll pop out. The center of this too far out here. So the trick is to try to keep it as flush as you can get it. As you can see, that one protrudes just a little tiny bit this side of the out drive. And that's okay because it's at full droop. That's a good safety area right there where it's at. But if I was to get this centered too close to this edge, you get this thing in a twist, or you get too much slop in your A-arm, or you get the droop to where the A-arm travels down too far, it'll just pop out. Especially if you happen to get into a crash. That's when it's more likely to pop out on you. But as you can see, this one, it's like perfect. That's really where I need to get my other one. Just about as perfect as you can get it on this left one. Just want it right there. Now this also includes the rear. This is the front of the car, but you want it that way on the rear too. You get that out too far and you're going to lose a CVA or a dog bone, whatever you want to call that part. But somebody mentioned they were having problems with their shock caps. They had the measurements were off or something. Now I've got 4 of them here, and they all round out about 14.75 if you do it like that. Now, to get the measurement of this correct, you would have to be inside that hole, and then the bottom of the cap right here where it meets the rubber O-ring. So you would have to somehow get that square to measure that, to be sure it's your shock cap. But 9 times out of 10, it's the droop setting itself. So the way you want to check that, let me get this down to 0 here. The way you can check your droop setting is to go from the middle of the lower bolt to the middle of the upper bolt. And you can just go to the center of each one. We're going to say this one is, we're going to roughly say, I'm going to just eyeball it here, of course, but we're going to say it's about a 76/40. Now we want to check this one. Let's go from the center of that bolt to the center of that bolt. Those things are just about perfect. I mean, just about perfect. Now, one of the things you got to consider, if you've got a little bit protruding over here, is the way it's shimmed. It could be shimmed just a little bit one way to the other, because if you this is your short side, the left side of the car. That's the short side of the diff. That's the short out drive. So it's got 6 shims on it. So it's going to be trying to push it further in. So that could be the reason why I'm protruding over here. It looks like I'm protruding about a shim worth. These gearboxes I've just built are 5 shims and 3 shims. So I'll note that when I put them in. I'm going to be putting these in because I'm going to be running a little slower motor. I don't need as much shim in there. Might even go to a 4 and a 3, but I'm going to play around with that a little bit throughout the next week, because we got a big race coming up next weekend. Not this weekend, but next weekend. Now this all applies to the rear of the car as well. You want to try to keep those to where they're the same. You don't want those protruding. You want to try to keep them as flush as you can. You don't want them protruding more than maybe a shim thickness. I mean, we're talking just a little bit. Now, you have to do it the same way with these. You just got to get back there. I'm not doing the backs because they're kind of hard to get to do on camera, but you get the general idea how to do it. You want those to be the same on each side as these are on each side. So, we covered that. That's a little troubleshooting for you here. Now, I was going to do some, this here's called the plunge. When you compress your suspension all the way, the dog bone plunges into the outdrive. My first kit, the plunge was so bad that it literally wore the outdrive down. It just had a big curve in it. It took about 8 weeks, and it was just like a big curve out in it down here. And I come to the conclusion it was from that plunge. Thiki, I believe it was Thiki, that's what he did, was he took his CVD, or CVA, and his dog bone, and what he did is he just, let's see if I can get you a good view here. What he did was, excuse me, he takes and files this off, this sharp edge on here. He just takes and files this sharp edge off. And then you got to kind of take a little bit off of this part right here too, on this roll pin here, this drive pin. And you just file that on until it's round, and maybe take a little bit off of there, and it's good. It'll be fine. But I didn't have to do it. The second kit, I actually took the diff nut in here and just took a drill and rounded it out, so I didn't have to do it, and it worked great. But on this one, I thought, on this build here, we'd just go ahead and do it box stock, and then we'd go through it together, but I didn't need it. So I'm going to show you real quick how to do that. You got to fully compress your suspension, and then you turn the other wheel to where the diff backs up. And if your if this wheel quits turning, your left wheel, the diff nut side, if it quits turning, like getting so much, if that CVA bottoms out on that diff nut in there, then this wheel will quit turning. Mine's not binding at all. It's just like totally perfectly, it's as perfect as the 0.1 and the 44 was. So this may be something that's only some kits do it, some kits don't. I shimmed everything the same as every other kit I've built on the 0.2. I did everything the same, so I don't know why it didn't happen. But if you want to check that to make sure it's not bottoming out, you just take and file this down to where it's round. You don't got to take much off. Just file her down to where it's round. And that's all there is to it. Take a little off of the pin there on each side, and then just round that off, and it'll quit bumping. One of the other racers at the track did it, and it's worked fine for him. But that's how you check it. Just fully compress your suspension, turn the other wheel, and if it binds up, you know you got a plunge problem. If it doesn't bind up, you don't have a plunge problem. So there's something to look for. We covered the droop setting. So these have to be the same length, same with the rear. You'll want to note that if your shock eyelets are screwed all the way on, you'll need at least one shim in there to, and I believe it's a .030 shim or a .78 millimeter shim or a .80, something like that, millimeter shim, whatever that would convert to. See, so if it's a .030, that would convert to a 7.70 millimeter. That's what I'm coming up with. Oh no, it's a .030. Where's my brain at? I'll get it right here. Hang on. .030. That is the shim. In millimeters, it's a .77. .77 in millimeters and a 0.030 in inches. And that's what the kit will call for. So you got to have at least one of those in there. And then you want to screw your eyelet all the way on until it just bottoms out. And go ahead and put them on, and then you can check them this way. Or you can check the stroke of the from the eyelet to the bottom of the shock cup, the lower retainer cap. Another thing to look for is if there's a lot of slop, like a cracked A-arm, a crack over the hinge pin. If you've just got too much slop in that A-arm, you can get CVDs popping out on you. If your camber, let's say this is about 3/4 of a millimeter in camber, or let's see, I think I'm at 1 degree. Let's see, yeah, I'm at like I'm at 0.75 degrees on the on my camber. So if this gets too far positive, if I get this front wheel too far positive, then that CVA will want to come out on me. If you get this lower eyelet in to the inner hole, you have to add a 0.30 shim to the limiter inside there, inside the shock body. You'll have to have 2 shims in there, in other words, because bringing this in allows for more droop. But it really only works good on bumpy tracks, or real loose tracks probably help a little bit. So I never run it. Most people don't. If you bring this in, it's going to shop the upper. If you bring that in, that's going to give you a little more droop on the upper shock position on the tower. If you bring that in, it's going to give you more droop. You're going to need the extra limiter. So those are things to kind of watch for. Your CVA starts popping out on you. Same goes for the rear. You get to moving your upper shock tower in. Most people run the lower eyelet all the way in 100% of the time. It's just a standard. Same with the outer lower in the front. But if you move this in, you can get away with 1 shim. But that one crash will get you every time. So you definitely want to have 2 shims in there just to make sure that you can screw that lower eyelet in or out to get you the right amount of droop. Because full droop is basically when your dog bone is flush with this outdrive. That's your full droop. That's really all you can go. You can push it maybe one diff shim further outside of this, but the thickness of one anyway. That's as far as you can push it. You push it anymore and you're asking for you're just asking for it to pop out on a bag crash. Another way to check that your droop is to get something like this, and you want to be as center as you can with the chassis, and then you just kind of lift up and hope that both sides come off the ground at the same time and sit back down at the same time, just like it's doing right now. But you want to try to be as center as you can get, and this one's pretty good, so I'm good there. My droop settings are good on my car as far as down travel with both shocks. Let's see, what else can we cover? That's really about it. I've gone back to the stock steering linkage. I'm going to give that a try. It's 20.5 millimeters from the center of each ball cup. We'll try that. I was running about 2 millimeter longer, and so I'm going to try that and see if that helps me a little bit on this here. Been having a little steering lock issue every once in a while, and I think that mod's going to work, but I made a couple changes. We'll see if I can fix that. That's really about it. I'm going to do some slipper settings. I'm going to try to get some slipper settings done. Show you guys how to set that slipper Saturday if I can. Just need somebody to hold the cell phone while I do it, and go from there. If you guys got any other questions, or if you need a video done about a setting or an issue you're having or anything, just post it up on the B44.2 thread on RC Tech. It's over on the electric forums. I'll be more than glad to put a video up if I can find the answer, and I know enough people. I think we can figure it out, but I got plenty of people I can ask if I'm not sure of myself. But as far as those droop settings go, that's something to look for. Watch your camber. If you get too much camber, positive camber, and that's where your wheel is pointing outward at the top, CVA will come out. Too much droop, it'll come out. Got a crack or something loose on the front A-arm, it can come out. That's really about it on that. Thanks for your time, and sorry I missed that when I did the shock build. I probably should have pointed some of those things out, and I think I just got in a hurry because I was anxious. I was getting ready to get this baby done. I just wanted to get her done and get on the road. But there's your little droop setting troubleshooting, stuff to look for, stuff to think about, and we'll catch up with y'all later. Take her easy.